What's up, everyone? It is Diecastbuffet here again, and today's video is going to be about the upcoming NASCAR season, whether it's all three of the series. We have a brand new championship format. Dodge is returning. A lot of cool stuff to be talking about, and be kind of going through it, what I think about each one. So make sure to give the video a huge thumbs up, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. So obviously the big news of the off season is going to be the chase is returning. Since 2004, the chase has been a very controversial points format for NASCAR fans, but it left the sport after 2013. You had the playoff run from 2014 all the way up to 2025, and somehow, some way, the chase for the Cup returns in 2026. And it is one of the most craziest things I have ever seen as a NASCAR fan, to think that the chase for the Cup is back after over a decade of the playoff era. And everywhere, people are excited about it. I mean, some people, they still want the full season format, myself included. That's the one I would have voted for, so to speak. But I think the chase for the Cup coming back, it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be awesome. Finally, they're going to have a sense of full season-esque racing. You're going to see a lot of points battles. You're going to see a lot more, less gimmicks, to be honest with you. And that is really welcoming after, 12 years of just playoffs every week, every time. It's going to be cool to actually watch an organic points format, a full season championship like system, so to speak. And this was something that was in the works for about 2 years. If you remember, after 2024, they kind of started talking about a committee to, hey, come up with a new championship format. But the question is, what format? So NASCAR brought a whole bunch of different people from the media, from former drivers to current day drivers, to kind of a think tank, if you will, about what direction to take the sport in. And overwhelmingly, the idea was we have to have a playoff elimination style format. Huge shout out to Mark Martin and Dale Jr. for just, keep on trucking with the full season format. And them keeping that full season format kind of at the forefront of the conversation led to the compromise of the chase for the Cup returning, and it's literally the most legit format you could get outside of the full season. There's no wild cards. It's, straight up 26 regular season races, 10 race championship. There's no other reset after the first race of the chase. It is pretty much straight up. And if you look at it from a 30,000 foot perspective, it is going to be as close as you could possibly get to the 36 race format, which is very exciting. And it's almost surreal to think that this type of championship is back in NASCAR. I remember watching the chase for the Cup when Tony Stewart won against Carl Edwards, and then Brad Keselowski won the championship. Then Jimmy Johnson, 2011, 2012, 2013. And I really enjoyed it. It's crazy to think that championship format is coming back. Now, it's going to have some pros. It's going to have some cons to it. A lot of people don't like the fact there's 16 drivers still. Apparently, the reason why the 16 driver field remains is that it was already a part of the driver contracts. In the future, we could see that go away. But for right now, with the current day thing, it's kind of, hey, the whole industry is already kind of ground, all the contracts into it. Maybe we'll revisit that in the future. But the main thing is the playoffs are done. No more crazy brackets and chaos and a championship being decided on the final lap at Phoenix or Homestead or wherever they have the championship. And it's going to be so much more legitimate. And the conversation I see about this, and I wanted to wait a full 24 hours before I really talked about it, because I wanted to kind of stew on it a little bit, is the overwhelming temperature I see on this is very positive. A lot of people are very excited about it, and I find myself right there as well, because the playoff format is so complicating. It's really it's almost annoying at times. It's just so cool to know that, hey, once they drop the green after the first chase race, which I think is going to be Darlington, there's no more gimmicks. If you have a 300 point lead entering the final race, congratulations, you won the championship weeks ago, right? I love that. I love the fact that you can have a dominant season once again in NASCAR Cup Series racing. This is also going to be in the Truck Series and now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, former Xfinity Series. So not only did they got rid of the Cup Series playoffs, they got rid of the playoffs entirely. Massive W. That's going to be so much more fun. One of the most confusing things ever for me was having all three of the playoffs going on at the same time. And it'd be like the Bristol night race weekend. You'd have the truck race, which would be kicking off their playoffs. The Cup Series would be on their third playoff race, which means it's a cutoff race. And then the Xfinity Series would be ending their regular season and about to begin their playoffs. It's just so confusing. It's so confusing. So now it's so much more streamlined. I want to imagine how difficult it would be to explain the playoff format in 1 minute to a casual fan or a fan or someone who's not even a fan of NASCAR racing. With a championship like the Chase, it's simple, right? 26 races, you create the bracket, or not bracket, but the 1 through 16 in terms of the point standings. You reset it, 10 race Chase. It's simple, it's easy, everyone can understand it. I love it, man. I think it's a great compromise. Again, I would have picked the 36 race championship. But now the entire aspect of the 2026 season kind of has a breath of new life, because the playoffs, you could just tell, even the drivers' faces, they're over it, man. So that was really cool. One thing that I want to add to that before we talk about potentially some other things for the 2026 season, because there's a lot of new changes coming, is a lot of the conversation around the original Chase format it wasn't a legitimate champion. And I think that is a very, very understandable argument. But the one thing that I don't see talked about enough, and it might be a little bit difficult to explain, is the teams and the drivers race differently according to the points format. If, like, for instance, in the modern, now technically the previous generation championship format, the playoffs, if you were to win the first race of a round, you're technically locked in for the next 2 weeks. The only thing you can do is get stage points, bonus points, or what they call them, playoff points that carry over to the next round. Again, that's how confusing it all was. That's what I'm saying. So you would get playoff points for winning the race that would carry over to the next round. If you're not lost already, well, congrats to you. And then you'd win a stage, and then you would get a playoff point. My point is, that's all you could gain. Once you win, you're locked into the next round. So you would try to just win races or win stages. Everything else could not mean anything because it doesn't carry over the next round. So what happens, you had teams basically taking in 2 weeks off of just doing research and development, trying experimental stuff, or not just doing anything at all and not tearing up equipment. With a format like this, you're going to get swayed results because you're going to have drivers finishing much worse, taking a gamble and it not paying off than you would if it was, the Winston Cup format, where every single week did matter in terms of what the Homestead or Atlanta, if you will, whatever the season finale was, that finishing event. The point I'm trying to make here is that when people say, well, Jimmy Johnson wouldn't have won this championship, or Tony Stewart, or whoever, based on the Chase rules, the rest of the field would have raced differently, including the Chase champion, if it was the Winston Cup points format. With 6 to 7 races to go, 8 races to go before the cutoff, you might not try as hard if you're really good in the points because you're mathematically locked in. Why would you run your most experimental equipment out there and then you go out there and smoke the field by 0.2 of a second in qualifying? Your car gets teched. They find the part or whatnot that made your car go so fast, and now you don't have it for the championship when it really matters. My point is that it is, even Chad Canales has talked about this, how they would save their best stuff with the 48 crew during the Chase years because that's the sandbox they were put in, right? Other teams are doing it, they just weren't as successful. So the point I'm trying to make is Jimmy Johnson probably would have won a lot of those championships if it was the full Winston Cup format where every single race basically, there was no mulligans, right? Jimmy Johnson had a really good 2002 and 2003, which was his 2 years in the Winston Cup era. So the point I'm trying to make is the argument that the chase for the Cup champions are like 100% illegitimate, I don't think is 100% true, because the teams would intentionally sandbag a little bit near the end of the regular season so they could save their best stuff for the actual championship 10 race chase. So my point is, the chase for the Cup is actually a whole lot more legitimate, I think, than what a lot of people might see from the perception, because there's always going to be an argument whether this guy won the championship or not, but they did race differently during the Winston Cup format to the chase format, because in the Winston Cup format, you just want to finish top 5 and top 10 every week, right? Even if you don't win a race, just top 5 and top 10. So consistency over everything. Well, if you're locked in 7 races to go for the cutoff, you can kind of go, you can make some crazy pit strategies and try to steal a few wins. If it don't work out, you might finish 30th, right? You might have to pit and, you might run out of gas or whatever. So my point is that the chase for the Cup format is actually a lot more indicative of who deserves the champion, I feel like, than what the most public perception is around the chase. So with it being the chase for the Cup being the format in 2026, I think it's a fantastic compromise, and it's so close to the full season format when you really look at it from a 30,000 foot perspective, in all honesty. The actual principle of it is basically, when they drop the green at Daytona, every single point is going to matter, and the only lull period of it is going to be the last 7 races before the chase. Once it gets to race 19 of the season, you're kind of mathematically locked in. You might see some guys take the pressure off. Obviously, the ones around the bubble, they're gonna have to race it out. But once that's over, the intensity goes up to a 10. So I feel like if the Winston Cup is a solid 10, I feel like the chase for the Cup is a solid 9.1, maybe 9.2. It's that close, in my opinion. So massive W. So I'm curious what y'all think about the playoff format news. I'm actually shocked they actually did it. I'm going to keep it a buck. 30 minutes before they announced it, Monday, my honest prediction was they were going to do a chase, but they were going to have a 3 race to go reset. 3 races to go, they have a reset. It was going to be 12 drivers, and then half of the drivers were going to compete. So it'd be a 6-car championship battle 3 weeks to go. That's what I was honestly thinking, and the reason why, there was so many different rumors. I'm like, there's no way they're just going to give us the OG chase. It would be so easy to do so, they wouldn't do it. And they actually did so. Massive W for NASCAR. Market the crap out of it, man, because there was a lot of people who actually liked the chase, and they left during the playoff era, not during the chase era. Obviously, a lot of people didn't like the chase as well. That has to be said. Historically, you could even look up, the forums back in the Nextel Cup days, and people were not too happy about it. So it's definitely a conversation to have. But I think we look at, the overall championship situation, the chase is going to bring back so much vibes of that full season format. I mean, think about it. You're going to see cars competing in the chase, competing on the bubble to get into the chase, specifically the last 5 races of the season. You're going to have like a Hendrick Motorsports or a Joe Gibbs racing car, and they're going to get in a crash, right? They'll be at a random 1.5 mile or something, and they're going to go in the garage area, and the announcers are like, oh no, they just threw the season away. They were that close, right? They had a lead, they had everything, they blew it. And the whole team, all 4 team employees, so it'd be, if it was Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Motorsports or 4-car teams, they're all rebuilding that one car in the garage area just to get it on the racetrack to get maybe 1 point. You're going to see things like that, assuming they don't change the DVP policy. That is old school as old school get. That's literally what stock car racing was built on. I mean, they would literally rebuild the cars in the garage area to get them out there for 1 point. Points matter now. You can't just, the winning in is gone, thankfully. So you can't just win the Daytona 500 and take a 7-month vacation in NASCAR. You can't do that. You won't make the chase. So the championship, the whole aesthetic is going to feel so much closer to the Winston Cup season. I don't think people realize it, to be honest with you. Like, points racing is back. You win a race, you get 15 more points than you used to. To add context, this was something they wanted done back in the early 2000s. Don't believe me, they would have a segment during some of the NASCAR races about 2003, 2004. And they had like a fan vote question. It was a sponsorship with Singular Wireless, which is now AT&T or whatever. And one of the questions during the race was, should the race winner get more points? And they were talking about it in the booth, and they said absolutely. And the fans always said the race winner should be rewarded. I don't see why it took them 23-something years to do so, but it's about time the winner of an event gets paid a whole lot more points. It puts an emphasis on there. I think that is great. It's going to be huge for trying to make up points. It's going to be fun, man. I'm excited for it. It's going to make every event feel like it matters. It's going to be basically like a tour, right? They're going to go across the whole country, go to all the different racetracks, and you're going to see another layer to this: organic storylines. They're going to have storylines that are going to write themselves because of the points battle. The championship battle, it's not going to be a guaranteed one race, decides it all. So you might see like a Christopher Bell or a Kyle Larson or a Chase Elliott or whoever, and they might have a 250-point lead with 5 to go. And then the final race, it's only 19 points. Like, wow, they just choked the championship away type energy. That's the type of storylines that are going to write themselves. It's no longer 3 race resets, and the gimmicks are gone. I love it. I still wish the stage cautions would go. I'm cool with stage points, but I could do away with the stage cautions because I feel like we need the strategy. So maybe that's something they'll work on because they could still run a commercial. Like they do they do the stage finish and they show the points. Okay, blah 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 blah. And then they go to commercial, right? They're going to go to commercial anyways during a stage break, so they could just go to commercial during it. I think that would be a good compromise. You would get a lot more organic strategy. So that's something in the horizon I would like to see. So another thing that's happening in 2026, obviously Dodge is returning to the Truck Series. Tony Stewart is going to be running the truck race at Daytona. I tell you what, they better make a diecast of that. That's going to be fantastic. So Dodge is back. That's going to be awesome. And the fact that there's no playoffs in the trucks, oh my goodness. No more playoffs, no more gimmicks. Yes, you're going to have the chase. I will take that 1,000,000 times over the playoffs. That's going to be fun. I don't even know if Corey Haim's going to have a full-time ride in 2026. That'll be interesting. Chevy's going to have a new OEM body in 2026. It's like 95% the same, so that could be actually good for the Chevrolets. They've actually been pretty darn dominant at a lot of these racetracks with that. The original 2022 next-gen body. It's actually been the best one, statistically speaking. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that develops. Will the Chevy start out slow? Will they'll, kind of start off right where they were when Larson won the championship last year? Homestead's going to be the finale, which just leave it there, man. The chase tracks, just rotate them, right? Let's just park it at Homestead. Everybody, I think like 80% of the fans truly love Homestead being the last race. That's fine. You can rotate the other 9 tracks as much as you want. Just keep Homestead the finale. I mean, it's just perfect for it. It's always going to have great weather. The atmosphere for it is just perfect. The sunset, the painted walls around the racetrack. Let's just leave it there, man. Change the other 9 tracks. There's plenty of diverse racetracks on the schedule. I think that would keep it fresh. So that's going to be really fun to see. Chicagoland is back, which is really cool. I miss Chicagoland, so I don't know how long they're going to stay on the schedule because there's still talk they might go back to the street course. So enjoy that one while it lasts. North Wilkesboro is going to be a points paying race, and I want to say it's going to be the longest points paying race at North Wilkesboro, possibly ever. The original one was about 400 miles each. They used to have 2 races a year. This one's 450 miles, I think. Or is it kilometers or laps? I don't know. They changed the mileage numbers for these racetracks so much it's hard to keep up with, but I digress. I want to say they added 50 more laps to it, which I'm all for that. I am all for longer events in the Cup Series. Apparently that's going to be a nighttime summer event. NASCAR's bringing more horsepower in 2026 to, I want to say, like every track that's not a 1.5 mile, excluding Nashville and maybe Darlington, which massive W. Can we get more horsepower though? Like, let's find a way to get. Let's go crazy with it. Let's do 1,000 horsepower and market the crap out of it. They're at least going in the right direction in terms of horsepower. That's going to be fun. I was actually seeing some test footage at North Wilkesboro. They literally were testing earlier today at the time of filming this. And you could tell the difference just from a visual. You see 1,000 laps in NASCAR. They all kind of feel like a blur. And do you see something that looks a little bit different? And you're like, wow. That's different. Yeah, it looks different. So, in my opinion, the looks like the horsepower actually is helping it a little bit. So that's cool. Let's bring it to all the racetracks. Why not? Let's do it. That'll be something to look forward to. Overall, I think 2026 is an exciting year for NASCAR because it's something new. You know, I remember when 2014, the playoff format. What's funny about it is I was so young at the time. I was 14. And when the playoff format was actually announced, I was actually excited about it because I had no idea how important the championship format was to get it right. So when I heard about it, I'm like, wow, 16 drivers, crazy playoffs. This sounds really cool. I mean, I was 14. So naturally, I'm going to find that kind of interesting. I look back at it, I'm like, they should have left that thing on the table they were writing it up on because, statistically speaking, it was one of the worst things that ever happened to the series. But the fact that the chase is back is pretty cool. Plus, if you play some of the older NASCAR games, technically the championship format is back. So it's like, it's very similar. It's like, okay, you run 26 races, you make the chase, let them loose. It's pretty cool. This is not necessarily the actual NASCAR product on track side, but I will say though 2026 is going to be very different for NASCAR diecast collectors in terms of the diecast chassis with the rubber wheels or rubber tires and the metaplastic wheels. That's going to be probably almost every Gold Series 164 ARC, I would imagine. And then you think about the MOQ changes. I've mentioned that a lot on the channel. It went from 2,500 minimum order quantity to 1,500, which means things are going to sell out a lot faster. So if you're a 164 collector, you kind of can't wait around on some of the real popular ones because a sponsor could be really popular, but they only order 1,500 of them. And then, once they sell out, they're gone. So get them while you can. That's going to be something to pay attention to during the 2026 season is acknowledging they're making a lot less of each 164 potentially. So 2026 is going to be a massive year of change for the sport. Going to San Diego, that's going to be, I don't know what to expect with that one. Try to explain the playoffs, man. So I'm curious what y'all thought. Again, I would have picked the 36 race format, but when you really look at it, man, it's so freaking close to the Winston Cup format in terms of just how you attack it, how you go through the season. Just knowing that they removed the restrictor plate on the championship battle, so to speak, that a guy can run away with the championship. We could have 3 races to go and the Cup championship's locked up. That's actually kind of cool. I like that. It's going to make the championship feel so much more legitimate and more exciting as the season plays out. Thank you all for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And for all your NASCAR diecast shopping needs, make sure to tap it over there to Circle B Diecast and use promo code Diecastbuffet. You could save on shipping over there. You don't have to, but hey, if you want to help support the channel, put some pre-orders in for your 2026 NASCAR diecast. Again, I mentioned they're going to be making less of them, but you're going to have more variety. It's going to be really important to understand the pre-order system. Awesome stuff. Hopefully the season pans out. I think it's going to be a wild ride, and last time I remember watching the chase, it was still pretty darn good. So it's going to be fun. Thank you all for watching. Have a blessed one. DB, signing off.